Yeah, just my luck with the car. The alternator decided to start acting up this week. I turn on the air conditioner, and it's like that little meter for the block heater just goes right through, right just short of the little red mark. You know what I mean? Where it's supposed to be too hot, and you do damage to your engine, which, of course, I don't want. Nobody wants to do damage like that to their engine. But now I got to worry about that with the the heat today. I can't win. I can't win with this car. All right, SuperTalk 1270, Jim Walsh, SuperTalk1270.com, filling in again today. The folks from Pride of Dakota, they had to take the day off. I thank them for allowing me to take advantage of this time to completely alienate their entire audience with my ridiculous opinions. Where shall we begin? We got kind of a heavy story today about this fellow on the West Coast. Listen to this now. It's this one's kind of hard. Usually I like to come right out of the chute with a real hard, driving fast opinion. But listen to this. At 15, he molested a 6-year-old neighbor. Not obviously, we're not going to joke about that. That's pretty serious. That's heavy. At 15, he did that. At 21, now, he's a star pitcher for the Oregon State baseball team. As you would imagine, some folks have a problem with this, especially in light of the fact that most people didn't know about it until about 2 months ago. Let me put this out initially. How would you feel about having this kid on your hometown team? Number here is 663-1270. And I'm going to do kind of a devil's advocate thing, because this morning when I came in, I ran this by a couple of people in the building I know here whose opinion I value, in the sense that they can always be counted on to come up with something stimulating and interesting twist. So I ran this by one fellow, and he said, we have to ask ourselves how long we should hold these people to this kind of thing, especially if they have, quote unquote, paid their debt to society. The whole thing raises issues about what a sex offender should be allowed to do for fun or a living once the sentence is served, and for how long. Let me put a proposal out there, and you tell me what you think of this, all right? All right, let's say a child is caught at 15. Now, there's no excusing it, but we also have to acknowledge that at the age of 15, a lot of kids are they have their heads up where the sun don't shine. We know that because the hormones are raging. All right? Let me give you this proposal here. Something happens at 15, they pay their debt to society, as we say. I hate that cliche, but you know what I'm trying to say here. Once his sentence is served, if there is one, what do you say we give the guy 10 years? If he doesn't repeat it, then the sentence is expunged. Because even somebody who does something like this, you have to ask yourself, at some point, do we want to give this guy another chance? Because the problem is, and I'm not trying to be a bleeding heart about this, because here's the problem. There's a practical problem even beyond that. I mean, yeah, compassion for the sinner and all that. That's fine. Yeah, it's a very Christian thing. Although I'm not a Christian, I can understand how people would feel that. But here's the thing. If you sanction a guy like this to the point where he has no options in society, there's no way he can get a job, there's no way he can do what he does best, what's he going to do if he has nowhere to go? This came up with a few years ago with the Megan's Law in New Jersey. And I happened to be living in New Jersey at the time. To refresh your memory, in the early 90s, there was a child. Her first name was Megan. She was kidnapped. The guy murdered the child. Before he murdered the child, he did things to her that we don't have to go into here. And it inspired this law, this sex offender notification law that's pretty much universal nowadays. They called it Megan's Law, which I always found very unsavory, to say the least. I hate when they name laws after kids. But they came up with this Megan's Law thing, and I was always against it, and I'll tell you why. It's feel-good legislation. It doesn't work. All it really does is isolate the sex offender and put the sex offender in a position where he or she, it isn't always a guy, where he or she is unable to get on with their life. Now, if a sex offender has paid their debt, if they have served out the sentence, whatever that may be, shouldn't they have a right to get on with their life? Because if you take away that right, among other things, if you're limiting their options, what are they going to do? Well, if they can't find a job, if they can't live anywhere because it's near somebody's family, what are you going to do? Well, in the case of a lot of these people, they do the one thing they know they can do that will get them in a situation where they know they can get a roof over their heads and 3 squares a day. They're going to do something deliberately going to break the law to go back to prison. Now, this is the kind of thing that people don't really think out, but it does happen. And we all like to feel really smug about we took care of this guy, this, that, and the other. He's sanctioned for life. He'll never hurt anybody again. Well, we know that's not how the world works. So what about as an alternative? Letting this guy be the pitcher, letting this guy pitch in the majors if it comes to that. Yeah, you'll keep an eye on him. But, allow him to have something of a life. Once a sentence is served, let him get on with his life. At the very least, it'll be one less motivation for him to get in trouble again. Make any sense to you? Oh, no, we want to do the whipping post. Oh, shut up. I don't want to hear about the damn whipping post. That's stupid. Come on. We are in the 21st century here. SuperTalk 1270, supertalk1270.com. More conversation, your calls coming up.
Right now, 79.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on SuperTalk 1270.
So we got this kid, well, he's 21. At the age of 15, he got in trouble molesting a child. He went through the system. We'll assume that the sentence was served, and now he's a pitcher for a baseball team at Oregon State University, compiling one of the best records in college baseball history. He's a left-hander, statistically the nation's best pitcher, and he's among the top prospects in next week's Major League Draft. But he's a convicted sex offender. What do you do with a guy like that? Do you let him get? At what point do you let him get on with his life? It's a more complicated question than some would have you think. I know there are plenty of people who are saying this guy should be in jail for life. Well, maybe he should. But what I'm saying is this. You go one way or you go the other. You either put the guy in jail forever or you, at some point, you let him get on with his life. And allow him, don't put him in a situation where he can't get a job or he can't get a place to live. What do you do with a guy like this? 663-1270. That's the number. Now, personally, in the interest of full disclosure, I don't really have a horse in this race because I can relate to both sides. In the sense, I have people in my extended social circle who have been victimized by sex offenders. I know people who have been categorized as sex offenders. Remember, too, not all sex offenders are created equal. And that's one of the really screwed up things about the whole system. Let me give you an example here. 3 o'clock in the morning, downtown, a businessman is coming back to a hotel from a bar. He's staying at a hotel, and he went to a bar. He had some drinks. And now he's coming back to the hotel, and he's drunk. He's going back to the hotel. He's got to go to the bathroom. His bladder is just spilling over. He doesn't think he's going to make it. So what does he do? He sees an alley. He looks around. There's nobody around. He walks into the alley. He unzips. He's taking care of business there in the alley, doing number one. Thinking, well, nobody's going to see this. I'll do it here and take care of it. And yet somehow at that very moment, some woman walks by with a couple of children. What they were doing out, who knows, but it does happen. And the kids look in the alley and they see this guy with his hanging out. And bang, just like that, this guy is sanctioned for life as a sex offender. Now, you can't tell me that's not ridiculous. But that's the mentality we're coming from here. But not all sex offenders are created equal. But if a guy does offend sexually, under what circumstances do you let the guy move on? That is the question here. Luke Heimlich, Sex Crime Services, as Oregon State Baseball gets ready for the College World Series. Good question. This is a tough one. Unfortunately, tough cases make for bad law, and this is exactly the kind of case that some opportunistic politician will look at and try to make some ridiculous, unworkable, unusable law out of it, like they did with the Megan's Law thing. Again, classic example of feel-good legislation. They had all. I remember I interviewed back in the early 90s when I was still living in that part of the country. I had an interview on one of my talk shows with a lawyer who was. Well, there's two lawyers, one on either side of the issue. Now, the lawyer who was against enacting Megan's Law in New Jersey, this guy had some good, interesting information about the questioning the constitutionality of it and questioning the workability of it. Whether this is really going to accomplish what they say it's supposed to accomplish. Had some really solid information there. The guy, on the other hand, didn't really have much to offer except for a lot of emotional appeals to the memory of the child. Whenever he got backed up in a corner in terms of, well, it was a lady, actually, and whenever I asked her a hard question and she got backed up into a corner, she immediately did the thing where you start talking about the child. You just, at one point, just yelling out the child's name. Well, what about the memory of little Megan so-and-so? Oh, what about it? Is this really going to help anybody? I mean, what about this issue? What about little Megan? It actually got, the argument actually got that ridiculous. Because, you know, people pass this legislation, everybody jumps up and down, they feel real good like they've done something about the problem. Only they haven't done doodly squat about the problem. All I'm saying is, it's a lot more complicated than some of you guys like to think. This thing a few months ago, and it's a different situation than what we're talking about, but when they decided they were going to have that vote to put that thing in the Constitution, the Victims' Rights Amendment, it's a bad law, it's unenforceable, it's unworkable, but, you know, the people love the idea of bringing justice to our streets and avenging the blah, 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 blah. So it got passed. We live in an era. That's why I'm not a big fan of referenda. You know, having the public vote directly on a lot of this stuff is because the masses truly are asses. Look at some of the goobers we've elected to political office over the years. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not going to mention any names. Excuse me here, I have to cough. Donald Trump. Al Carlson. Excuse me. Yes. Where was I? So there you go. I feel like I'm doing I'm like the guy in the alley, except I'm doing it in the wind. Flapping in the breeze there. Feel good legislation. Everybody likes to feel good. And it always passes because people feel good about it. Oh, boy. SuperTalk 1270. SuperTalk1270.com. My name is Jim Walsh. Let's talk about the millennials. I love the millennials. I really do. I know quite a few folks who are of that age, the more recent baby boom we're talking about, 30 and under, I guess. And you know what? I like these folks. I really do. And frankly, I am tired of hearing them getting the raw deal that they're getting. Everything that's wrong with society is apparently now the fault of the millennials. You know, it's always these old fart baby boomers who are pointing their creaky finger and blaming these young kids today for everything that's wrong with society. Now wait a minute here. Especially if you're a baby boomer, and I'm a baby boomer. I was a second-half boomer born in 1956. Truly a child of the television rock and roll era. I was actually born the day that Elvis Presley recorded his first million seller. So I'm a child of rock and roll, quite literally. But, you got people running around, these baby boomers, who should know better. Because at one time, we were on the receiving end of this baloney, this crap. about, yeah, you're young, you're messing up the world, you got it. Well, you know what? The millennials are what they are, and I think they're just fine. I think they're great. I look at the millennials, and actually, I get a renewed sense of hope for the future because I really like the way where their heads are at. I like their values. I like their priorities. I like their views on politics and organized religion and society and these other things. Generally, I like millennials. I like them a lot better than some of the old farts at the other end of the scale, who really should know better. Remember, guys, remember when we were young and everything that was wrong with the world, it was our fault. Them damn hippies with their long hair. You know, long hair is causing the breakdown of society. How's hair length causing the breakdown of anything? Except maybe if you're in business cutting hair. If you're a barber, you probably don't like it, but then you become a hairstylist. And you style the hair instead of just cutting it. But I mention all this because I came across a thing this week from a business publication. Listen to this. They're talking about, we talk about changes in society. The fact that casual dining is kind of on the way out. The places, the franchise restaurant places, we have a bunch of them in town here. Every town does. The places where you go that are not local mom and pop operations or part of some national franchise, and you go in there and you get your chicken wings or your Buffalo Wild Wings or your chicken tenders or your burgers or whatever. Well, a lot of these places are on their way out economically. So listen to what this Business Insider publication, listen to the byline. Millennials are killing restaurant chains. Oh, yeah, it's a terrible thing, and it's all the fault of those damn millennials. You're not going to have Applebee's and these other places anymore because the millennials screwed it up for the rest of us. Now, without naming any specific chain, although I just did, but let's not pick on Applebee's. Let's just say these chains in general. A lot of these food chains, the food, frankly, is not very good. And what you're seeing now is a trend where the millennials are coming along and they are not going for the generic franchise food. They want stuff, either they make it for themselves at home to their own taste, or they want to go to restaurants with real character run by real people who know how to make food with real taste to it. Yet they're terrible people because they're putting all these big franchise places out of business. How ridiculous is that? Come on, what's wrong with the millennials? Not a damn thing is wrong with them. 663-1270. I'm here to stand up for the millennials. I love them. 96. Here I go again. Where am I working this week? Okay, SuperTalk 1270, supertalk1270.com, and Jim Walsh. I'm just a young punk at heart. More conversation coming up.